The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, here we go. We are lined up today. Paul Finebaum versus SEC coaches. Who's more powerful? We'll discuss that. Also, Tennessee's best non-football athlete, as Todd Helton makes the Hall of Fame over the weekend. An LSU cornerback decides it's appropriate to record him and his girlfriend having relations. Good morning to you, Derek. Also, why do people think the Vols are still rebuilding? I heard that on local radio yesterday. Oh, I think 2025 is the year. I don't understand that at all. And LeBron James, who we're not going to talk about for long, will lead the Olympic players out onto the field for the Olympics. If you had to choose a Vol to lead Tennessee out onto the field in the opener, I'm curious, who would it be? And I've got a couple of thoughts on that, but one that stands out more than any. And his name doesn't rhyme with Uncle Rico. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Man, Tennessee should have Uncle Rico at quarterback. That arm in that movie, I mean, just the throws he made. You know?
He was a pretty special, and, you know, he could throw it over those mountains, but so could Joe Milton.
Yes, that's very true. You think Joe Milton wish he could go back in time and take state?
I think that, yes, he would probably like to go back and do a couple of different things. But all that being said, it is Nico's team. So should he lead the Vols out? That's the question I will ask you. It is today's tough question, and it's brought to you by our good friends at the Hemp House.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Will the college football world catch up to Josh Heupel's offense? Brought to you by the Hemp House, hemphouseChatwith2ts.com. Caleb, thoughts? Is this something that Tennessee fans should be worried about? Not just this year, but going down the line.
Yes, it's always something you should worry about. I mean, you know this, Dave. You covered the you covered Tennessee during the Spurrier years when they finally figured out the Florida offense. But it took a long time. So the question is, how long will it take? And will Josh Heupel already have the program rolling? Because Spurrier had so much success by that point that it didn't matter that people had figured it out. Now, on the flip side, you guys know I always question the IQ of coaches, but I do think defensive coordinators are a lot smarter today than they were back in the 90s. I mean, I'm sorry, Dave. It still boggles my mind that it took 8 years in the SEC before a defensive coordinator was like, hey, maybe we should have some faster linebackers to defend Spurrier. Like, how did you not figure that out 3 years in?
And dare him to throw. Dare him to run the ball. He didn't want to run the ball, so they tried to take away the pass, and they dropped into coverage. That was the whole Prowler defense in 2001.
It shouldn't have taken that long to figure out.
No, I agree. Every single offense or defense is caught up to. Okay.
Everyone.
And Travis, I think it's debatable if they figured out Spurrier, but I thought with the Prowler package was kind of the final 2x4 on the camel's back that they did. But that's fair to ask that question. It will be, Josh Heupel's offense will be caught up to one day, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a successful coach. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. I don't believe that it matters if defenses catch up to Josh Heupel's offense for two reasons. One, I think he's a good coach in other categories. He's not just an offensive coach. And he said that at the SEC Media Days. Don't just call me an offensive coach. That's one. And the other thing is this offense is still based in the ground game. If this was a gimmicky offense like the run and shoot that had 5 wide at times, that may be a little bit before your time, going back to Warren Moon and those guys with the Oilers. But Caleb, that was gimmicky. And you knew it was gimmicky, but you thought it's fun to watch and they are competing, so go for it. But ultimately, their defense was hung out to dry. I thought there was a chance that Josh Heupel might be that type of coach when I first saw his offense. But now that I've learned more about him, his pride in running the ball, the fact that he wants an elite defense, I don't think it matters if he's caught up to or not. But yes, he probably will be at some point, that offense.
Yeah, I agree. Heupel manipulates the rules of the offense, so it's tricky to see how you catch up to it if he recruits the right players. The difference between that and like a Spurs was just like, well, I'm just going to throw the ball a lot. It wasn't anything simple. I mean, it wasn't anything complex. It was, I'm going to throw the ball a lot. And defensive coordinator was like, oh, I wonder how you stop the passing game. But that's how it was. I'm sorry. They make him sound so smart with the fun and gun. I'm like, so you're saying defensive coordinators took 8 years to figure out to just put more speed on the field. Anyways, Heupel actually uses the wide splits with the wide hash marks. He uses a vertical rushing attack. The question doesn't necessarily become, will Josh Heupel's offense be figured out? I think in today's game, because of the rules, it's hard to figure it out. The question is, in my opinion, will another more advanced offense come along? And I think that you're on the precipice of that. You're going to test it with Kalen DeBoer and Jeff Lebby in the SEC. Jeff Lebby runs a hybrid of what Josh Heupel does and what Lane Kiffin does. And for those who don't remember, I'm talking Lane Kiffin from his USC days.
See, I think Tennessee is the perfect case study, Caleb, because they also want to get upfield and they want to be aggressive on defense. So my question is, does a team say, hey, these guys are throwing the ball all around? Let's just say, pick a team in the East, South Carolina. Let's say they don't.
I love how you said the East.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't say the
anymore.
I'm sorry. Let's take Kentucky, for instance. And they say Tennessee's our rival. We want to beat them. We're going to chuck all that we've done and try to approach that game and that rivalry in a more traditional sense. In other words, run the football in the A and B gap. In other words, control the football. In other words, on defense, I think you're going to have to drop a lot of guys into coverage and keep the score low. But that's how you would approach it, and I think that's doable. But I think Josh Heupel would have an answer for that.
I think he probably would. My question is, would he have an answer for if he wants to be a defensive guy, would he figure out new offensive schemes that come into the SEC, or does he care to figure out new offensive schemes is the question.
Well, I think this comes back to, what is Joey Halzle for Tennessee? Because I believe Alex Golish came to the table with ideas, offensive ideas. And now we have Joey Halzle that has stepped in. I believe last year was more Milton's fault than Halzle, but some of you think it's Halzle. I don't think that's the case. But you also have Tennessee's offensive line coach, Glenn Ellerbe, getting access to the headset and being involved more with the offensive play calling and game planning. So either it's one of two things. Either that is, hey, man, we need some fresh eyes on this offense. We need a little bit more new input. Or it's just, Glenn, you've been a great soldier, so we're going to make you more of an offense.
I think with the helmet community, I think the reason they're doing that is the helmet communication. I think because of the helmet communication, Glenn Ellerbe could probably talk to Cooper Mays specifically from the sideline, and they can do offensive formations. That's why he's involved in the offensive play calling now. I think it was a change with that. But again, the question, I'm stuck on, I don't think he's ever going to get figured out. As I say this out loud, everybody gets figured out, but Dave, the rules don't allow you to figure out Josh Heupel's offense.
That's true. And the old West Coast offense was never figured out. I mean, there's still people running that in the NFL. There are people running that in the college game. It's just a quick, short passing game. So, no, I think in college, I don't know if it'll ever take to the NFL, but I do believe in college that this thing's going to stick.
Exactly. Now, what's more cutting edge? So you're right. Heupel does this. Kalen DeBoer runs, you just said it, the West Coast. He runs the air raid he runs the air raid out of the spread formations, and he doesn't run the ball. That's the difference people don't understand between a Heupel and a Kalen DeBoer. Heupel runs the ball. He uses tight ends. So Kalen DeBoer runs the air raid with 3 tight ends, which is going to be weird to see, Dave. Do you think that's more cutting edge in Heupel's offense at all?
That Calhoun and Dave is going to run with 3 tight ends?
He runs an air raid with 3 tight ends. That's how he does it.
The last guy that did that was Brian Harsin at Auburn, and we all know how that went. It wasn't an air raid, but it was 3 tight ends. No, I think multiple tight ends is a great way to lose in the SEC. I wasn't honestly aware of that.
Yeah, he runs the air raid with multiple tight ends. So for those who don't know, think Mike Leach's old system.
What the hell is that, slow raid?
That's what he uses for his running game. He doesn't run the ball. He throws the short dump off to tight ends. That's how he does it.
Okay, well, I'm interested to see how that works because it sounds pretty slow. I mean, tight ends by their nature are slower than the receiver.
It's about efficiency, and people didn't get this about Mike Leach's offense because he put up so many points. It's not like Josh Heupel's offense. Josh Heupel wants to score like that. I mean, Josh Heupel's not happy if he took more than 2 minutes to score a touchdown or needed more than 6 plays to score a touchdown on offense. I mean, he's not. Kalen DeBoer and Mike Leach, the air raid is going to work you down the field. You know what I mean? It's going to work you down the field. It's like even though it's a pass-happy offense, it's a ball control offense. Is that fair to say at the same time?
Yeah, but Derek likes slow raid, and I do too.
Well, all air raids are slow. Air raids are about ball control.
But a bunch of dudes that play tight end that are 240 pounds are going to be extra slow as opposed to the 210 Mike Matthews.
I mean, that's kind of what the Patriots did for a while. Remember, the Patriots would spread the field and use their tight ends. It was a pro style, don't get me wrong, but that was what they did with Tom Brady for years, right? They spread the field but used their tight ends to do it. And so that's not a totally out of the line concept. And so
but you would have to agree it's not very sexy.
It's not. And also it's not like it's impossible to figure out. So that's the Heupel off, it's not manipulating the rules the way Heupel's offense is. Manipulating the rules. Heupel turns college football rules against himself. Heupel will be a fine until they change the rules in college football. And I mean, what if Heupel, and this is the truth, what if Heupel's so successful that he starts winning national championship after national championship, and it's like a Wilt Chamberlain move where they have to change the rules because Heupel's dominating so much with this offense?
Or like Wilt Chamberlain, if he starts to have Nico throw underhanded. Because at one point, Wilt Chamberlain throws underhanded. Tuesdays brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center. They are fantastic. And why do the people out there that think the Vols are rebuilding not think that this is the season? Because Caleb said it. I've said it. Have they been listening? Take a second, if you don't mind, to hit like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, I'm not going to name who it is, but it was on local radio in Knoxville, and I heard somebody say that 2025 was the year. Why in the world would you say that? To me, it's always been a 4-year plan. At times, it's been a 3-year plan. Guys haven't even gotten that long. You have 4 years to churn everybody into your system. Why is 2025 the year in some people's minds instead of 2024?
Because people, without having already played for something, are always scared to take the leap of a program, not realizing that at some point you're no longer rebuilding. You're done. You're done rebuilding. And you can't be rebuilding forever. It's an old excuse that fans do. You've seen it, Dave, that fans do. Like when their team loses, and is just not having the season they wanted, all of a sudden it's, oh, we're young and, things will be back next year. Oh, you're always young. You're always young. You're always going to be better next year. Guys, there's always next year. And eventually you have to say next year should be this year. Tennessee's in its 4th season with Josh Heupel. They have the generational quarterback who we all think is generational. I'm not saying they have to go win a national title this year, but if they're not already in the mix, as in the mix as they'll ever be, then they're never going to be in the mix. You should always be in the mix by your 4th year. And to give you a quick example and history lesson on this, funny enough, Dave, remember Buzz Peterson? We all do, Tennessee basketball. When he got fired after 4 years on the job, he got fired. He did an interview about 3 years later, and he said, I just thought I should have stayed another year. And he said, because my whole plan was to build the program in the future around Tyler Smith. He was supposed to be the guy to turn around the program. Really, a 4-star power forward, your 5th year on the job was going to be the guy to turn around your program. That was your plan. That was your grand long-term plan for Tennessee basketball, was to get a 4-star power forward your 5th year on the job. And
with a penchant for unregistered guns.
Yes, exactly. So it was just so laughable to hear that. And I'm like, Butch Jones, the wheels fell off because he underachieved his 4th year. If your 4th year, you're not delivering, I'm sorry, you're not going to deliver. I mean, I'm not a part of the 5-year plan guy. That does not mean you have to win a championship by your 4th year. But you got to be in the mix by your 4th year. I'm sorry, you do.
Yep. I agree with that. I think that 2024 will be the year. I'll ask you on the message board, no Coop, no 2025. That's a good point. So Bison Lang or somebody had better be ready. I think that you're right on the media side of it, because let's face it, Tennessee's burned the media twice already. 2 out of the 3 years with Josh Heupel. Nobody thought Tennessee was going to be a 10-win season in 2022, correct?
Correct.
And then everybody got on board. You and I were telling people that Joe Milton had limitations in August, but nobody wanted to listen, and that's fine. And we wish the best for him, but it didn't work out. So the media got burned again because Tennessee underachieved. I don't think they want to get burned again. And I think this is the safe way out. If you pick them to win a championship like you have, and you've gone out on a limb, and it's not for show and promotional sorts of things, and Caleb and I talk off the air, and that's important to me that we're genuine with you each and every day at 10 a.m. Hit like and subscribe. And I think you've taken the leap because of Nico. And I understand the curiosities there, but man, I don't know what more reporting has to be done by various people that have seen Nico play, and by people that have talked to people within that program. I consider myself one of them. There are others. I totally think he's for real. So maybe that's the one thing. If you look at it and you say, oh, he'll be in his 2nd year as a starter, I guess that's the argument, right?
But that doesn't hold water when you look at the history of quarterbacks the last 15 years.
I'm not
also,
arguing it. I'm saying that's them arguing.
Yeah, that shows also a blatant misunderstanding of Josh Heupel's offense. You don't have to have experience starting in this system. If you've been working in it for a year, it's pretty easy to figure out. So
exactly. I'll give you an example. Okay. You know who would have been perfect for Josh Heupel's offense?
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect, and could have stepped in and started his first year in the program. Well, I'm going to tell you, it is Cam Newton.
Yes.
Okay. So Cam Newton wouldn't need any time to learn this offense. Maybe there are some offenses that are so complicated you'd have to sit a year, even as a junior college, fully developed, physically transfer. No.
I
don't
agree.
think this offense is like that. I think you would learn that from January to August and be ready to roll. And I think that's a heck of an out if something were to happen with one of Tennessee's quarterbacks. I think they're good with Nico, but I don't know about Mecklenburg or the other guys. Merklinger.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny because Cam Newton, literally, I mean, he has a great deep ball. He's got touch over the middle. I mean, he's not that accurate, but he's athletic, and accuracy, like deadly, like pinpoint accuracy is the least important thing for a quarterback in Heupel's offense. Is that fair to say? You don't need it really that much. Now, you can't be as bad as Joe Milton was accuracy wise.
Sure.
But you doesn't have to be pinpoint.
If you give me that disclaimer, I'll roll with you on that. How about that?
Okay. That you don't have to be as inaccurate as Joe Milton.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to pile on. We've been accused of that, but I don't want to do that. But I do think that is something you have to be aware of. You can't be that far off the table, but I don't think that Josh Heupel is going to recruit anybody that is that far off the table. And I also will give him credit for the fact that he's able to say, hey, I'm going to pull the trigger on this guy in January, so he gets an opportunity elsewhere. And he's run off some guys. Who are the quarterbacks he's run off, Caleb?
Well, so the first year he ran off Harrison Bailey and Brian Maurer and dismissed Kadon Salter because Kadon Salter was getting in trouble. And then he ran off Taven Jackson the year later.
I can tell you that one of those players reached out to me via Twitter and said that it was cryptic, but I asked the question, are you still a VFL if you leave the program? And he messaged back in a direct message and said, what if you were asked to leave? Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. 5 years ago, that was a bad thing before the transfer portal. You would absolutely bruise, if not destroy, your reputation as a recruiter. But that's no longer the case. Caleb, you can do that now, and guys can play somewhere immediately.
Yes, you're right. And also Heupel does it in a way that I think is fair. I mean, Heupel tells them early, like, look, you're probably not going to play here. Now, I know the person you're talking about, he probably never planned to play and just wanted to keep the scholarship. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I don't blame him for that either. But I will say that, yeah, the quarterback situation, when he has his guy, I think he's very fair to push the other guy out into the portal. I'm also going to say this with this whole, the reason I'm bullish on Heupel in Tennessee this year, again, it's not that they have to win the national championship. It's this. If you don't think they're in the mix this year, they're never going to be in the mix. How can you believe in Josh Heupel and how can you believe in Nico Iamaleava but think they won't be able to compete for a title this year? Then you don't believe in them. It's you're lying to yourself. If you believe in them, because what they're all telling is, we love Josh Heupel, we love Nico, we think they're great, they're very good. You know, Nico's going to be a great quarterback, but next year's a year. Why? If you believe in them, then this should be the year not to win a national title, but at least be in the mix.
Now, I want to offer this up. Despite losing Cooper Mays, I think Tennessee will be better in 2025 than 2024 because I think the recruiting and the talent have continued to take an upward trajectory. So I think they'll be better, but I don't think that means that they're not ready to be champions in 2024.
I think they'll be more talented in 2024 or in 2025. I think they'll be better in 2024. I think 2024, there's a chemistry factor with this team, particularly offensively, particularly with Cooper Mays, who you brought up, and particularly with the leader like Amari Thomas and Keenan Pili, that I think that there's a Michigan factor to go along with this Heupel offense this year.
Yes.
That I think people are underrating.
Yes. And we'll see how Mecklenburg, the linebacker from the Cleveland Browns, does at one point, as various names jump into my head. It happens when you get older. Sorry about that, guys. I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friend, Medicare Misty. I'll tell you what, we're so fortunate to have Medicare Misty, and you can click on the QR code right there. But with Medicare Misty, she charges you nothing to take care of your Medicare needs and your parents as well. So Medicare Misty, absolutely love her being a part of the program because she does great work for good people. So check out Medicare Misty for your Medicare needs.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Caleb, are you a big Olympic guy at all?
Not much. Never really been a big Olympic guy. I think it's honestly criminal the way that, the way they don't, well, no, honestly, the way they don't pay the players a dime and they rake in billions. And when people were like a few years ago, like Simone Biles let down her team by leaving the Olympics. I'm like, you're right. She should pay back all the money that they gave her to compete in the Olympics, which is $0.
Well, anybody that says that's an idiot because you had the spinnies and you can kill yourself with the stuff she does. But she's back. I think now it's better set up than it was. But the point I was trying to make about the Olympics, I do enjoy the Olympics. I know it's a little hokey, but I do enjoy it. But I heard about LeBron James carrying the flag in the opening ceremonies. And I thought to myself, who would do something similar if you had to pick a Tennessee player? Caleb, who would that be? And on our message board, give me some thoughts. I think the obvious answer would be the quarterback, but the quarterback's pretty young and probably not a leader yet. So what say you, Caleb?
Now, we talked about this morning about who should lead Tennessee through the T, like who should carry the flag for Tennessee going through the T.
Yes.
There should be a player. And then we know the captains don't really run through the T. They go meet at midfield beforehand.
Well, let's not worry about that. Let's see who's going to run. Okay.
I still think it should be your biggest star. Nico Iamaleava is going to be the biggest star this year. He should carry the flag through the T. And just for this is going to be a bad example, I know. I know it's going to be a bad example, but just like last year, when in Aaron Rodgers' first game as a Jet, he rolled out and led the team carrying the American flag. And, now, yes, that didn't work out too well, but it's still, I think it was a way to let everybody know they're all in with Aaron Rodgers. They're excited about what he can do. And I think it would be great for Nico Iamaleava to do that for Tennessee.
It would be symbolic of passing the torch, wouldn't it?
Nico Iamaleava carrying it? Yes.
Yes. If you said it's your game, because I believe firmly it would be Cooper Mays. I think he's a leader of this offense. I think he's one of the great leaders of the team. And I think it would be Cooper. But what an incredible, and we're making up this designation. Okay, nobody leads through the T carrying a big T flag, but it would be cool if they did. By the way,
Travis has the best. Travis has the best one.
Okay, lay it on me.
Travis says Jackson Lampley.
It's not Jackson Lampley. We're not going to do Jackson.
No, because of the way he puts himself out there.
Yes, it's true. All right, so I got Cooper Mays, Nico Iamaleava, and Keenan Pili. Who else would you have in there? Omari Thomas?
Throw Omari Thomas or James Pierce in there.
Well, it's not going to be James Pierce because still
okay,
working.
Omari Thomas in. Yeah, you would throw Omari Thomas in there.
Yeah, the earlier, I can go and tell you it's not going to be him. The earlier poll, how much of Josh Heupel's success is just offense? That's just a big part of it, 95%. All 4%. That's a small part of it. 0%.
A small part, Heupel's offense is just a tiny, tiny part of what he does.
I mean, I would have gone with that one. I don't understand why. Maybe I misinterpreted the question.
His offense is a small part of his success, Dave.
A huge part. Who should lead the Vols through the T in the opener? I got Cooper Mays, Nico Iamaleava, Keenan Pili, Omari Thomas. So those four are the ones that we're going to put out there. That's Tennessee's biggest star. That's the three that they selected to go to SEC Media Days. Right now, Cooper and Nico are battling for that top spot. So go ahead and vote. And if you don't mind, click on that like and subscribe button. Quality Tire Pro, the Eberle family, has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave Hooker said hello. Any other candidates besides those guys? It feels like Tennessee has a bunch of really, really good leaders, but maybe not, other than Cooper Mays, in my opinion, one guy that stands above the rest. Although, and the reason I put Keenan Pili on there is a little bit of insight, Caleb, because I was told that by somebody in the program that Keenan Pili is as well respected as any other player on Tennessee's football team.
So we talked about him yesterday, and we kind of got lit up on Twitter, on YouTube, for talking about him, if you look at our comments. But all the hype behind him. What about Boo Carter? True freshman, carrying that flag out.
You can't do that.
Why can't you? Why can't you? But, kind of gives him the vibe that you're all in with him, right? That you're fully supportive of him. Here's a Tennessee guy, committed to Tennessee, a splash commit, humiliated Colorado, because Colorado was like, oh my God, we're Colorado and Deion Sanders can get anybody.
Well,
And
I would like for you to do this. I would like for you to convince me that Nico should be the guy instead of Cooper Mace. Why?
one, he's the quarterback. Two, I think Nico is, if I think Nico is going to be as big of a star as he is this year, Josh Heupel has to think that. And three, there may be a recruiting factor, Dave. Hear me out on this. Keenan Peely is the leader of the defense, and he's a captain. If you have then Nico carrying the flag out, you get Tennessee very relevant in the American Samoa community at that point. And I'm just saying.
That is not crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, yeah, I'm with you. Boo needs to produce some first. But what Caleb said, what Caleb said says a lot. Because if you're just new to the channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. But if you're new to the channel, then you know that we think that Polynesian players are about the best players in the world. We have total respect for them. And if you get a team full of those, you're probably going to win a lot of football games. Right, Caleb?
Yeah, you will. You will win a lot of football games. And if you can get, and I'm just saying, you get Nico out there to carry the torch. You have Keenan Peely as a captain of the defense, and Nico's your quarterback. How visible is that going to be to everybody?
Okay, but I got an idea. Okay, so your symbolism would be passing the torch to Nico. What about my symbolism? I'll go Keenan Peely, because it shows that it's not just an offensive program. It's not Lincoln Riley. Tennessee can play defense. What about that argument? Or Omari.
Okay.
And Omari is an in-state player.
Amari would be a good one. I was fine with Amari, but see, I would say, and I know he had his issues, but that's where you still got to think. Again, Boo Carter plays defense. James Pierce with his issues. I'm sorry, going to be a number 1 draft pick maybe next year. I mean, you are sending a message with that. Now, maybe edge rusher doesn't really count because Tennessee is going to get elite edge rushers consistently because of the system. But you want to do both of ours. Tennessee plays defense and do the Polynesian pipeline. I got it, Dave. I got it. He's not Polynesian, but he is of Samoan descent. Jackson Moy, have him carry the flag out. And just think about this.
By the way, Jackson Moy is going to be very good, I was told.
Yes. If Jackson Moy carries the flag, Keenan Peely's a captain. Nico Iamaleava is already visible because he's the quarterback. You check every box at that point.
Okay, I've got a better idea. I've got a new tradition for Tennessee to start the Poly Pop line, as our good friend Travis likes to call it. And it is this. You have Nico Iamaleava run out there with the Tennessee flag, the UT flag, the Power T flag, and next to him, it's your defensive player, Keenan Peely, who carries what? Who's waving around what? The TriStar Tennessee flag. Boom. Boom. That is money. That is a golden idea.
How about but what about one of them should run with Smokey out too?
Okay, special teams. TriStar hats for the latest TriStar hats. Go to the original, TriStarHatsCo.com. The link is right down below in the description box. You can get ahead of the game by having your TriStar apparel before they start this tradition that I've predicted that they will, that I have no idea that it will actually happen. But for the latest in TriStar hats and more, go to the original, TriStarHatsCo.com, TriStarHatsCo.com. The show, as always, represented by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, so the weekend for me was really, really neat. For those of y'all that don't know, Todd Helton and I didn't go to the same school and didn't play the same field throughout the time, but we we always knew of Todd because we were in the same graduating class and we're both from North Knoxville. So that was incredible to see him go in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I wonder who's the best Tennessee non-football athlete. I will ask you that. We'll be back in exactly 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Hooker Show, represented by Banks and...
Let's just start that over.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
New poll question coming up. Have you ever recorded yourself by getting it on in honor of the LSU cornerback that was arrested for a sex tape?
I at least hope you got the consent of the person you were getting it on with when you recorded it.
Yes. And if they haven't already warned you about it. Also, Paul Finebaum versus SEC coaches. Who's stronger? Without a Nick Saban, I think you've got a real debate that Paul Finebaum might be as powerful as any other coach, any other figure other than Greg Sankey in the SEC. I think you could make that argument. I certainly do. All right. Tennessee's Todd Helton goes in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. It's the hardest Hall of Fame to get into. So it was an incredibly special moment. I'm going to go ahead and give it away. He is my favorite non-football athlete because of how bad he wanted to play football for Tennessee. Notice I said that. If he'd have gone to another school, he would have just played baseball. But it was important for him to get on the football field, even though it probably wasn't in his best interest, given his baseball talent. So to me, it's Todd Helton by far. It's really not close. But there are personal reasons there.
Right. And I understand Todd Helton. And in terms of like actually having had professional success, Todd Helton probably, it's Todd Helton, Bernard King, and now probably Candace Parker and Tamika Catchings for the most professional success and non-football. My favorite is Candace Parker. She went to Tennessee, carried that team to 2 national titles, really by herself in a lot of ways. And then she had a heck of a WNBA career, 2 WNBA titles, 2 WNBA MVPs, a WNBA Finals MVP, a WNBA Defensive Player of the Year award, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Very good ambassador for Tennessee and for, great as the face of the program when Pat Summitt was going through her illness. So it's always been Candace Parker for me. The other, obviously,
that is just a great point about being the face of the program when it needed it. Just wanted to commend you for that.
Yeah, she really does deserve it for that. I mean, deserve a lot of love for that. And the other one, and I stick with the Lady Vols. Shamika Holtzclaw, who did not have the success she should have had in the WNBA, still was pretty good, but battled with depression and, was very open about it. And at a time when mental health was still kind of cast aside, and was really a trailblazer and being public about her depression. And, back in the day, this, Dave, older generations like, depression, suck it up and get over it. And not realizing that for some people, it is a real issue that they literally can't overcome sometimes.
Okay.
And she struggled with that a lot. And I'm a huge fan of her for being public about that.
Totally agree. Give me some more on the message board. What you think in terms of your favorite non-football athlete. And so far we have Candace Parker and Todd Helton. Who else would you include on this very, very short elite list? We only want to pick the creme de la creme.
Bernard King would be the other one.
Pardon me?
Bernard King. You got to put Bernard King in there.
Okay, now I'm going to throw you for an absolute loop. And those that are young, very young, or younger than me, maybe even you. Doug Atkins. Oh, he's football. So I can't go Doug Atkins. I'm trying to think of old athletes that I've covered. I'm trying to give the guys respect from back in the day. I'm having trouble coming up with a fourth one. What about you?
Just say other. Leave and tell them to leave their comments.
Okay, there we go. Other leave comments. We'll do that. As we remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friend Rick Terry. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler, and they would be happy to do that with the Fire Opals. That is a Tennessee tradition, and it's at rickterryjewelry.com. Those Fire Opals, very affordable, and they'll look fantastic on you or the missus or whatever the case may be when it comes to the fall. You'll absolutely love it. Monica Abbott getting a vote there. What are your thoughts on that? As I share a way to contact our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design on the program, you can jump on that QR code and take care of that. Caleb, what say you?
Love Monica Abbott. If she had any run support whatsoever in a lineup, Tennessee wins a national title in softball in 2007. I mean, Monica Abbott pitched shutout after shutout throughout the entire NCAA tournament until the final game of the College World Series when her arm just gave out on her and she gave up a lot of runs because she literally had no run support from that team.
So do you want me to go Monica Abbott or other?
I'd still go other because I was thinking of that was for success at Tennessee. And with the reason I have Helton, Bernard King, and Candace Parker, is it safe to say those are the three best players?
Wait. Meads called us out, and he's right. It's SEMO.
But wait, no. Here's why. This is why, guys. I'm trying to be clear on this. The reason I think those are the three is I'm looking at professional success they had after college. So
you need a track record.
You need a track record professionally. And those are the three. Now, if you guys want to debate me between Candace Parker and Tamika Catchings, that's fine, because Tamika Catchings may have had more pro success than Candace Parker, but it's debatable. But I'm going, I think professional success, like Hall of Fame level success, Bernard King, Candace Parker, and Todd Helton. I mean, that's the clear-cut three. And Derek did mention Allen Houston. I think Bernard King is a little bit higher on the list than Allen Houston for Tennessee. Wouldn't you, Dave? For the men's basketball program.
I would agree with that. I think Bernard King would be the guy in basketball. We're going to go with other, but Monica Abbott would be obviously the one in softball. Candace Parker, yes, we could debate Shamika Holtzclaw, but I happen to agree with you in that one. And then Todd Helton's the one in baseball if you need that track record. But I will tell you this, that 10 years from now, well, it's hard to project anybody to get in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. But 10 years from now, SEMO could definitely be in the conversation. Christian Moore talking about the Tennessee baseball, by the way.
Absolutely. But if we're not factoring in pro careers, I mean, I got to go Chris Lofton. Chris Lofton's my favorite non-football athlete to ever play at Tennessee, beyond even Candace Parker. Like, Chris Lofton was, I mean, I'm sorry, like one of my favorite photos, one of my favorite highlight clips in the history of sports is Chris Lofton dropping off Kevin Durant from 35 feet. And I bet Kevin Durant created a burner account trashing Chris Lofton after that.
Probably. Pretty good one. We want you to be a part of Hooker's Corner, where you can get all kinds of recruiting information, but all kinds of prizes as well. You might see over my shoulder right here the John Henderson mini helmet. It's autographed by John Henderson. You can see it right here if you're on our video platform. It is awesome as I try to pull it away and make it where you can see it. And we will be giving that away on July 31st. So you will be able to win that. Go ahead, and all you have to do is be a member of Hooker's Corner. So it's just $9.98. There's a recruiting video in there you want to be sure and check out. We greatly appreciate our friends at Sports Treasures. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow them on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates on Sports Treasure TN, Sports Treasure TN. Now, I wonder where some of these non-football athletes might rank if you put football players on there. Who are the locks that would definitely rank ahead of the three we picked? I mean, to me, there's a lot because I covered them. So maybe this isn't fair. But I loved Casey Clausen. I thought he was great. I loved Eric Berry. He's my all-time favorite ball to cover. He answered so many questions about the balls being bad because they didn't at the time have a quarterback to answer questions. And I could tell he was sick of it, but Caleb, he showed up and he answered questions every single day. I could go on and on and on. I'm personally friends. I was in his wedding with Mike Stoll, Tennessee offensive lineman. So that would rank ahead of me. But as far as impact on pop culture and football, it has to be Peyton Manning. It's not even close.
There were about 4 Vols that probably tower over other non-football Vols that, like, the football Vols will just take a tower over everybody else. So let me just name them. You mentioned him, Doug Atkins will. I mean, Doug Atkins is in football lore for Tennessee and in sports lore. Reggie White.
For those that don't know, he was one of the freakiest athletes of his time. Like, imagine Giannis Antetokounmpo nowadays.
In football. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reggie White's on that list. I know, and it's probably more because of what he did professionally, but people love him. Peyton Manning's on that list. And three more recently. You mentioned him, Eric Berry. Eric Berry is very clearly on that list. And Dave, something you covered him more than I do, but you can't say there's so many great things about him. You accidentally leave some things out when you're talking about him. I do too. He was a sophomore when he was sticking his face out in the public for Tennessee with the issues because nobody talked to the media. There were upperclassmen during that time that were hiding from the media. And here comes Eric Berry going in front of everybody and defending the program. I mean, that I agree. Eric Berry was incredible.
Amen.
John Henderson, I think, is a two-time as a two-time All-American, an Outland Trophy winner. And also John Henderson coming back for his senior season when he didn't have to as a defensive tackle and didn't have the Peyton Manning financial means, as far as I'm aware. Him, and then, 98 national title. Al Wilson. I mean, I don't understand why his jersey number's not retired, Al Wilson.
Why isn't his jersey retired?
They have because they have a technical criteria that he didn't meet. His jersey should be retired.
Do you have a problem with Al Wilson's jersey being? And I know the criteria. That's what they did. Explain that real quick for those that don't know.
It's I don't know. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's basically you have to have a certain level of accomplishments in college and in the NFL and in the
It shouldn't matter at all.
Shouldn't matter. No. I don't know if Al Wilson met either technically, but like Al Wilson should have his jersey retired. It's stupid that he doesn't. The most beloved team in Tennessee history, and he was the heart and soul of that team. And you know what's crazy about this, Dave? T. Martin got a road in Knoxville. Fine, T. Martin gets a road. You're the quarterback of the national title team. How does he get an honor before Al Wilson? Who was more important to the 98 team, T. Martin or Al Wilson? Let's be honest. It was Al Wilson.
There is no question it was Al Wilson.
None.
Now, I believe there was some – I do believe there was some social pressure to And again, I don't care what they did in the NFL. I think there was Al's neck injury that doesn't really bother me to put him on that list. But when I want to be careful in how I phrase this, Caleb. I thought there was some social pressure to give T. Martin some more love for racial reasons. A lot of people continued to say that Peyton Manning was the better quarterback, and that rubbed some people the wrong way, and they thought it may have been racially motivated. Now, I'm aware that Al Wilson is African American as well, okay? So I know that, but I think there was some pressure to give some love to T because it was viewed as, by some, that he wasn't as highly respected, that he was more like a pitcher or a goalie, in hockey, where you can win it. A hot goalie can win it for a team, but a hot T. Martin can't go beat Florida, Syracuse, Arkansas. I mean, it takes a team to beat those teams.
It does. It absolutely took a team. I mean, I understand some of the resentment. It was like Peyton Manning towering over the 98 team, and the 98 team won it. And a lot of that came from exterior factors, though, because anybody that was in Knoxville, anybody that was covering Tennessee, anybody that was on Rocky Top would know that, one, Peyton Manning was the better quarterback, but would also know that Tennessee fans loved T. Martin, loved him, right, Dave? He was beloved in Knoxville. And so people didn't understand the subtle nuances. The problem was, and what people didn't get was, T. Martin wasn't the heart of that team. He wasn't. I mean, Al Wilson was. Al Wilson was the heart and soul of that 98 national title team. The guy forced 3 fumbles and a half against Florida. Is that not the best big game performance you've ever seen from a defender, Dave?
Yes, it is.
Like, 3 fumbles and a half. And I'm sorry. You can't take that. Like, you can't look at that and ignore it. And also, again, I say this is one of my other hot takes. I think Peerless Price was more valuable to the offense than T. Martin. How many times did T. Martin close his eyes and throw it up and say Peerless makes it?
Well, he didn't close it. I know you're joking, but no, he stretched the defense for the running game, which was very successful. I mean, who else stretches the field on that team? Who?
Nobody.
Who scares you deep? What receiver scares you deep on that team?
Nobody. Cedric Wilson was a hands guy. He was a possession receiver. And maybe Jermaine Copeland, but
no.
I mean, yeah, no.
Not fast.
So it was literally Peerless Price. He was their one deep threat, and he didn't have another receiver to take pressure off him. And he also had a quarterback who was not Peyton Manning, who a lot of times just trusted him to run a go route and catch the ball. And he consistently did that.
So who do you think's leading the poll right now? Who is the best non-football UT athlete of all time?
I think Todd Helton's winning. Am I right?
He is. Significantly. 53% Bernard King with 20%. Candace Parker with 7%. And then other, we've been talking about the others, so maybe we've gotten some votes out of that, would be 19%. But Todd Helton, I'm surprised, is winning significantly. I thought maybe there would be some more Bernard Kings out there, but I especially thought there would be more Candace Parker. Now, if we ask the question who has done the most to help their university, out of those 3, it's Candace Parker, right? Because she still gets pub and TV. She was the face of the program when all that terrible illness was going down with Pat Summitt. So who has done the most for UT? And I don't know what they've given as far as donations possibly, but that's Candace Parker, right?
Yeah. I mean, she really kind of helped transition, bringing the women's game to more of a male audience. I mean, being on NBA on TNT, let's be honest, the WNBA deal, the whole Caitlin Clark talk, that doesn't happen without the work Candace Parker put in. Is that fair to say? I mean, I think that's very fair.
It doesn't happen without all the work that Pat Summitt put in the early 80s. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it doesn't happen without the work Pat Summitt put in. It doesn't happen without the work Candace Parker put in, being an ambassador. So I think because of that, yeah, she's always, and she constantly touts and talks about Tennessee too. I mean, look, you can debate Candace Parker or Peyton Manning over who is the best representative of Tennessee because they're on TV so much. I mean, it's those two, right? Beyond anybody else.
I would think so. I would think it would be those two. I think that the SEMO thing in 15 years, if I'm around to see it, will be interesting to see if he challenges what Todd Helton does. But let's be honest. I mean, again, making the the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is the toughest to make. Derek used a great word that we overuse probably on this show. Parker was a transcendent female athlete. I think that's true. I think a lot of people that didn't respect women's basketball respected her, the way she presented herself on television, the way she played hard. And let's face it, she's a little bit more physically gifted, smoother, like a male athlete typically is. She looks more like a male athlete. I mean this as a compliment, with the way she moves and her smoothness, and she shoots over her head. There's no chest shots. With the way she plays, she looks like a man playing, and she's gorgeous. I don't mean that as far as aesthetic.
Well, that's a funny thing. You're right. She actually has she plays, almost like a true wing player in the NBA. Like, she has those long strides with her dribbles, and she can run the full court and things like that. Things that you do see a lot from the male game. And yeah, she has a lot of male game aspects in her game, but she's hot. That's not pretend that doesn't help. I mean, it's
really. I mean, it's true. I mean, being good looking gets you on TV. I've always said that having a decent voice has probably helped me in radio. I mean, if you have some sort of advantage, take it. And she's taken that and run with it. And now she's a household name outside of Tennessee's peeps, which I think is pretty impressive because that's not easy to do. Paul Finebaum.
Yeah, I mean, I use my looks to my advantage all the time, so I hate when people get criticized for it.
I don't blame you. The only reason you were hired is your awesome looks. Paul Finebaum versus SEC coaches. Who is more powerful? Ask that question in 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX 45,985. 24 Ford Escape 30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT 32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Stat of the day coming up. It's time for this day in Tennessee sports history. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're a fan of the show, or choose hit like or subscribe. It's up to you. Just please press 1. Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our good buddy Don Self. Customer service still matters. He is in the Chattanooga area, the Ooltewah Collegedale area, go to donself.net. Right below donself.net. Customer service still matters. He's been in business for 40 years. This day in Tennessee sports history is...
Major happy birthday to a very underrated player of a non-football caliber, and that would be Bobby Mays, who was the starting point guard on Tennessee's first Elite Eight team ever, the one that Bruce Pearl led them to in 2010. Everybody remembers Scotty Hobson. Everybody remembers Wayne Chisholm in the post. Bobby Mays was the point guard and the quarterback of that team. Really the glue guy, and one of the most fun players to watch too.
It was kind of too like Tennessee's own local mini Allen Iverson, which he happened to be good friends with.
And
So
he
he
looked
had,
like him.
yeah, he looks like him. He has the corner, the hat at one point, and he's been successful training kids and putting on camps in the Knoxville area. I don't know if you're aware of that, but while basketball didn't work out for him long term, it has in another aspect. He's been able to give back a lot, and that's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, I believe, isn't it JP Estrella who played for Bobby Mays? I think it is. I think JP Estrella played for Bobby Mays. Either him or Cade Phillips or one of the guys that you would not expect to be mentored by Bobby Mays, because it was a tall white guy. Put it that way. Like the exact opposite of Bobby Mays.
All right. So we talked about this last week, but everything's so busy with SEC Media Days, we didn't have time to dive into it. So you had the Lane Kiffin telling Paul Finebaum off on his show. And I was curious because, and if you didn't hear it, Lane Kiffin essentially blamed Paul Finebaum for Lane getting fired. He said that he knows for a fact that the AD and the president were watching Paul Finebaum on television the day he was fired when Paul Finebaum called him, what did he call him again?
Miley Cyrus of college football.
And he got fired later that day. My question for you is, Paul Finebaum more powerful than Lane Kiffin in the SEC? He's thinking.
Yes, because I don't think Lane Kiffin has the power he should be able to wield in the SEC. I think if Lane had not, gone all around, look, let's. I think Lane, the way he has carried himself over the years in certain aspects, has limited the power and pull he could have in this conference. Is that fair to say, Dave? A couple of instances. Had Lane stayed at Tennessee and had success there, Lane might be more powerful than Paul Finebaum. Had Lane not left Alabama in a very unceremonious way. Now, I'm sure you know better than I do, Dave, right, about the way he left after being their offensive coordinator. It was not a pretty situation.
That's correct.
At the very end. Getting on the wrong side of Saban like that, I think that also was a problem to a certain degree. I think those two things cost Lane Kiffin the power he could have over Paul Finebaum in the SEC. And by the way, Miley Cyrus is doing awesome right now. Her last album was great for anybody who questions it.
She's done a couple of compilations too with other artists that are absolutely through the roof. So I'll agree with you there. She's definitely put her career back together. I don't even think there's any question about that. I've been very impressed. So when you look at the SEC, Kirby Smart is supposed to be the next guy in line, right?
Right.
But we don't know that he wants to be that. We don't know that he can be a Nick Saban as far as a leader, the dean of SEC coaches. Kirby Smart is the dean of no, I guess that would be Mark Stoops, wouldn't it?
Mark Stoops is the dean of SEC coaches.
Okay. But Mark Stoops
who chooses not to wield power.
Well, you're not going to get power in Kentucky.
But hey, you don't think he's had other offers elsewhere and he's choosing to stay at Kentucky?
Oh, right. But I don't think Greg Sankey calls Mark Stoops and says, give me a feel for this recruiting issue I get a question about.
No, he doesn't.
I think he called Nick Saban. He said, how big of an issue is such and such?
Yeah.
And probably got a little bit of preferential treatment along the way because he was helpful. Is he more powerful? Is Paul Finebaum more powerful than Kirby Smart? Work trucks, all about trucks that actually are available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Truck saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with the NAPHID work bodies installed, pickup trucks, dump trucks, cranes. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you to get back on the road. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industries, you need to know Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks for the entire inventory. Go online, worktrucksllc.com. They're on Clinton Highway in Knoxville and downtown Birmingham, worktrucksllc.com. Work Trucks with an X. Why risk chancing your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? worktrucksllc.com. You got to have it. I'm telling you, the perfect truck. Outfit it. worktrucksllc.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. I think Paul Finebaum's stronger than Kirby Smart.
I think so too, largely because Kirby Smart chooses not to wield that type of power, if we're being honest. Kirby Smart's a ball coach. He's a ball guy. Not that Nick Saban's not, but Nick Saban was a ball guy and a CEO. Is that fair to say? Like, he's probably the only. Is he the only coach ever that was both? That you can think of? Typically, you're one or the other. Like, you're a ball guy, you're a guy that knows ball and talks ball, and you're a CEO. Like, Dabo Swinney's a CEO, right? He's not a ball guy.
Sure.
So
you're
Josh
saying
Heupel's a ball
who is
guy.
both?
Nick Saban was both. I think
was Nick Saban both originally? Because he didn't handle the Miami Dolphins exit very well. I think you're giving him a little bit more credit for being both. I don't think he was a people person.
Not a people person, but as a CEO. Well, he was more of a people person at LSU than he was at Alabama. He wasn't at Alabama because he didn't have to be at Alabama. But he was molded under Don James. And for those who don't know, Don James won a national title at Washington in 1991. And Don James he kind of invented the organizational structure of running a football program that exists today. And Nick Saban was his protege from the start. So Nick Saban understood the organizational side better than most people. Put it this way. Nick Saban, like Kirby Smart's he's a coach. He's a ball coach. And Derek Dooley was a CEO who couldn't talk ball. Was that fair to say?
Yes.
Yes. Nick Saban is a combination of Derek Dooley and Kirby Smart. Now, the Kirby Smart style wins more if you have to choose between the two. If you're you can have a ball guy who's not a CEO. You can't have a CEO who doesn't know ball at all. And
I agree. Now, Travis said, "Give me a break. No way Paul has any real significant power like Kirby has."
That's not true. Paul has some power.
Yeah, let me give you an example of something that could play out. And I haven't talked to Paul about this. Many of you might know that he wrote the foreword for my book, which is available, but it has nothing to do with this. Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, is not going to make the next Florida football hire. This just in. When they hire the next football coach, it's not going to be the former media relations director for Mississippi State. It's not, okay, which Scott is. So I believe that if that next AD was reaching out, doing his research, and called Paul Finebaum, which I think is a possibility, if they know each other, I think he could say that Lane Kiffin still not sold on him, and it would affect that decision. That's something that Kirby Smart couldn't do.
Not only that, Paul Finebaum can know some things about Lane Kiffin and tell the AD that. You know what we talked about with his unceremonious exit at Alabama? You were covering them. I have family who works for the University of Alabama, so I can just say off the record, there's a lot of things that were going on with Lane Kiffin at Alabama. And if Paul Finebaum chose to leak that to an athletic director, he could sabotage any job Lane Kiffin got, pretty much. And I will say this: you don't think Paul Finebaum knows about it, Dave?
Well, I think he's very aware of all that. Paul's one of the
Just
most intelligent people in the media. That's not
Yeah.
saying a lot.
Just like you knew about the Lane Kiffin behavior at Tennessee. I'm sure Paul Finebaum did, right? With his ties to Tennessee.
Well, if you check our text messages, then yes, he did. If you want me to be, I'll just be real honest.
Like there are two schools you don't question Paul Finebaum's knowledge of the inside works, right? Alabama and Tennessee. He knows everything going on at those two schools. Is that fair? And probably Auburn too. Would you throw Auburn in that mix?
Yes, but I think he's really tied into most schools, don't you?
I think he's tied into the whole SEC. Well, look at this. Paul Finebaum's voice just put Lincoln Riley on the hot seat. Have y'all watched him on First Take the last week? He basically said Lincoln Riley did the worst coaching job of anybody in college football last year. And I think immediately USC is putting Lincoln Riley on the hot seat because of what Paul Finebaum said.
Okay, what other broadcaster has that sort of power? Anybody? I mean, I don't think so. I know Dan Patrick has helped a couple of guys get in.
I think Stephen A has that power for the NBA.
You think? Okay, man, does he have that much power to really affect?
Stephen A for the NBA has that type of power. If Stephen A was calling for a coach to get fired in the NBA, he'd get on the hot seat immediately.
Interesting.
And
do you think that Lane Kiffin? Do you think that USC really factored Paul Finebaum's decision into his firing?
Well, I wanted to say no because he entered that year on the hot seat, but the way they fired him on the tarmac right after Paul Finebaum said what Paul Finebaum said. And
kind of with you.
You know,
it sounds absurd. And if you're listening to the media to make your decisions, other than me and Caleb, you're an idiot. But the way it played out, it doesn't sound outside the realm of possibility.
And I'll tell you what triggers USC. When they're winning, they embrace the Hollywood culture, don't they? When they're winning, they're like, yeah, we're USC, we're Hollywood, you love it. Like, it's almost like you're jealous you want to be us. Is that fair to say when USC's winning?
Yes.
When they're losing, they get very triggered to be branded as the Hollywood school, so they're soft. That's very triggering to the USC community. And so the minute Paul Finebaum threw the Miley Cyrus thing out, it was like, oh, you're making us look like the celebrity school, but in a way that's like we can't play football. And then they took that real personally. I mean, look, they get triggered when you say what I say, which is that Reggie Bush was a solid NFL player, but he was soft, wasn't he? He was a soft player. No, that's not his fault. He was little. He was a little guy. But USC hates that. You know, they get triggered when they get labeled as that a lot of times because of the connotation of them being Hollywood. So, yeah, I think
Crystal says Kirk Herbstreit. Who's stronger in that regard, Herbstreit or Finebaum?
Ooh.
I'm gonna go same, but I think you're more scared of Herbstreit and what he might say because he doesn't share that. I think that Paul Finebaum has less of a filter, and maybe it's a take thing, but at least you know where you stand. I'm not completely sure where Kirk Herbstreit stands on some things. And if he doesn't like you, I don't think you want his non-endorsement for a potential job.
I think here's one big difference. And I say this with all due respect to Kirk Herbstreit. Because what I'm about to say doesn't even apply to me because this is something you have over me, Dave. This is something Paul Finebaum has over Kirk Herbstreit. If you've been a beat reporter or if you've been tied in like in a local way covering a team for a long time, you end up building connections that you can never build if you just immediately get in as a national reporter. Kirk Herbstreit got immediately in being an analyst on College Game Day. But you got tied in being a beat reporter for Tennessee. And by the way, for those who don't know, if you're a beat reporter for a program, you don't just know the inside and outs of that program. You know the insides and outs of every program that comes across that program, right? Like, Dave, I'm sure you knew things that were happening at Ole Miss, Alabama, Florida that you couldn't share with the rest of us during that time.
Yes.
And
yes, that's the goal. Obviously Tennessee was the main focus, and I think you bring up a really good point. You have to have some leverage, and I think Finebaum and Herbstreit have that leverage. Maybe too much leverage.
Finebaum has it the most, so that's what I was saying because he was so tied in as a Southern radio host for so long. And Herbstreit was a College Game Day guy.
Well, and they work for the same company. So I would think that they share some information back and forth. So maybe the question should be, who's more powerful, any coach in the SEC or the Finebaum Herb Street ESPN combination?
Let me ask you this. With Saban as a broadcaster at ESPN now, is Nick Saban about to be the most powerful person in college football? Because if Paul, he has to know all of the stuff we're talking about, right? He knows it all deep down.
If I'm an athletic director and I'm getting ready to hire a coach and I don't have Nick Saban's number, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. And I'm calling him.
What they've all said and what they were saying at SEC Media Days last week, Saban can now be fully honest. Saban thought about it. Is it fair to say he thought about Alabama first when he was a head coach at Alabama? That was his job.
Yes, but think about his vast wealth of knowledge and how many people he knows. Somebody calls and say, hey, this is University of Nebraska. This is Bob, and I'm the athletic director. And I was thinking about hiring a guy that I saw. He has a really bad haircut, but we really like where his program's going there at Arkansas State, and it's Butch Jones. Well, then Nick Saban's going to say, whoa. I mean, he's not going to go for that. So you're going to avoid a hire that could potentially get you fired.
Saban signed off and highly promoted Jeremy Pruitt when Tennessee hired him, and he highly promoted Derek Dooley. Looking back, those should have been red flags. When your rival school's like, oh, this coach, you're going to really love this coach, guys.
Well, I completely 110% agree with that. Go ahead and get on board now. Our poll is still up. Let's give that a check. Who is more powerful? Paul Finebaum, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin. Lane with a bunch of no votes. Paul with 20% of the vote. Kirby Smart with 80% of the vote. So that is certainly taken off. And then something seems to be taking off down in Baton Rouge as an LSU cornerback was arrested for a sex tape, and not just a sex tape. This is pretty salacious and might get pretty serious if it's not already. Caleb, what can you tell us about this young man who's made a very major mistake?
LSU sophomore cornerback Javien Toviano was arrested as he was accused of what is called video voyeurism. He was accused of recording himself having sex with his college girlfriend without her consent. She's 19. She has apparently warned him in the past not to do this. He apparently records his sexual encounters.
Okay.
And now, and with, there's free, I just want to point this out. Dave and I are journalists, so we study First Amendment. There's been free speech issues as it relates to porn for a long time, right, Dave? In what can be shown and what can be out there. And the idea of policing revenge porn was a First Amendment issue for a while. But what's not a First Amendment issue, what is a state-by-state thing, is whether or not you can record somebody without their consent. And by the way, Tennessee fans should know that because Philip Fulmer was allowed to record the Trezevant High coach without his consent to get Alabama on probation back in 2001 over the Our Mean scandal. Isn't that how that did I get that detail right, Dave? Basically, secretly recorded him.
There's been some secret recordings going on, but not of the sexual nature.
Yes, that's not what I was saying.
Yes, this is a very unusual situation, and I wonder where this ranks. I mean, how would Tennessee handle this? Where does this rank among issues that we see that are more commonplace, such as traffic issues at Georgia, such as drug issues at everywhere? I don't know. Now that pot's legal, we don't hear about that much anymore. But obviously, I think domestic assault, like physical hurting someone, is worse. But this is pretty bad. This is pretty bad, and we could totally make fun of it and do that. But I wonder what Tennessee would do. How do you think Josh Heupel would handle this?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, there's two layers here, and we don't know all the details. Did he distribute this tape, or did it just get out, but he recorded it for himself?
I think it just got out to her that he recorded it for himself.
Because, if he's recording it for himself, I'm not sure there should be laws on that. That's debatable. But
if she didn't give consent.
If it's for yourself, though, I don't know. I mean, it's debatable. There are some free speech issues with that, and you're right to like, what if it's your dorm? Do I not have a right to have a security camera on in my house wherever I want it to be? And do I have an obligation to tell you that if you come into my house? I mean, it's my house.
Did Conspiracy Caleb just turn into Kinky Caleb?
I'm just saying there are some rights issues. Now, here's the thing.
Am I if I ever come to your home, am I allowed to use the restroom without being recorded? Can I sign a non-consent form?
Yes. Okay. The restroom. You're right. That is a privacy issue. You're right. Okay. No recording in the restroom. Fair enough. That's okay. You're right. You got me. But the reason I'm bringing this up is like, I think Josh Heupel would probably say like, if you were recording it, like, because as Adam points out, what if you were doing it to make sure that he covered his own, what, in case like somebody accused him of something? What if that's why he did it? He is an athlete. And so
I do know that, and I do not want to diminish victims here. Okay. Their rights are the most important, but I do know that there are females that try to use their feminine wiles to date football players that they think may be rich one day. There are also males that use their business acumen to try to get their money from them as a financial advisor. So there are people preying all over these athletes all the time. So don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility that it could be for something like that. I don't think it's likely, but I'm not ruling it out that he would say, hey, this girl's been a little shady. I'd still like to hook up with her, so I'm going to record it. Pretty shady.
Yes. At the end of the day, the lesson is don't do this, obviously. But I'm saying I think Heupel it would depend on the level of what he did. If it was a recording and he was doing it and he shouldn't have been recording, I think it's a suspension. If you're distributing it to people, that's dismissal. That's kicking off the team. That's gross. If you distribute a sex tape of somebody that you recorded without their consent of being recorded, that's as low as it gets, quite honestly. And I mean, that's worse than any of Georgia's minor traffic violations. Not the major one, not the one that got somebody killed, but the whole doing donuts on the road that Georgia players keep getting arrested for. I'm sorry, like secretly recording a sex tape and leaking it to other people is worse, significantly worse.
I agree with that. I want to talk some football recruiting here in just a moment, but to close this, I look at Nilo Sylvan maybe a little bit before your time. Do you remember Nilo Sylvan, Caleb?
I do not. Actually.
Super speedy receiver. Think of a poor man's Peerless Price.
Okay.
Like not quite as good, but very good. And he was in the late 80s. And it was reported that he was accused of rape, and it did, as Meade said, ruin his career. Now, I don't remember, Meade, and you may correct me on this, ever getting to the bottom of that. No pun intended. But if he was able to get the charges dismissed, but maybe still did it, I was young. I was like 16 at the time. Or he really, really did it, and that was the situation. I don't know. But I know the A.J. Johnson situation a little bit. Caleb, you do.
Yes, the A.J. Johnson situation and the Knoxville DA. I'm telling you guys in Knoxville, vote her out when you get a chance, okay? She is so aggressive in trying to charge football players to try to make a name for herself when she has no case. She had no case against A.J. Johnson. Whether or not you think he did it, it's a difference between whether or not you think they're guilty and whether or not you think the evidence is there to prove it. She clearly had no evidence. It was clearly a losing case and put his career on hold for 4 years in the NFL to try to bring this case to trial. Here's this crazy part of the A.J. Johnson case, Dave. For those who don't know, in court, guilty verdicts are rendered a lot more quickly than innocent verdicts. I think you know that, right, Dave?
Yes.
So,
except for OJ,
that one was quick. A.J. Johnson was found innocent. He was found innocent, or he was found not guilty more quickly than even OJ was. He was found not guilty. Now, let's think about the backdrop of this for a minute. For those who let's think about history of America. A.J. Johnson, a black guy in the South, was found not guilty by an all-white jury after being accused of sexual assault of a white woman within 20 minutes. Guys, do you know how that's how obvious there was no evidence against him? That's how obvious the lack of evidence against him was. And I'm just saying he had his football career on hold for 4 years over that. And again, for just to correct with the AJ Johnson situation, the woman never admitted she lied about it with the AJ Johnson case. Or you may be referring to the Nilo Sylvan case, me drinker. But as far as AJ Johnson case, the woman never admitted she lied about it, but she did text AJ Johnson like a couple of days later, which is odd behavior too. So yes, these are reasons you might, but look, this is the truth. As an athlete, it's unfair, it's unfortunate, but you just have to be careful. You can't sit there and record without consent people you're sleeping with. You just can't do it.
Well, yeah, but you shouldn't have to tell anybody to do that, right?
Just tell them you're recording. Just be like, hey, this is not going anywhere, I promise, but I do record for personal reasons. For every girl you bring to the room. There's still plenty of girls that'll come to your room if you do that, are there not? If you're an athlete.
I would think if you're an athlete, you're in okay shape. Let's talk some recruiting. Want to encourage everyone we appreciate you that have been on Hooker's Corner to this point, where we'll have increased recruiting information. And there's already a video up there now that you can check out. As Caleb, a quick update on a couple of different guys. We are waiting till Saturday to what we think will be good news, and that is Lagonza Hayward. Now, I've got news of another prospect that might be flipping from a big-time program. But first, let's talk about Lagonza Hayward and what Shady, as he's nicknamed, would mean to the Vols, where it seems that's where he's going to go.
Yeah, so Lagonza Hayward is a 4-star safety across the board. Another Georgia kid. Another kid that Georgia wants really badly. And another kid that Tennessee's leading for. Could it be 3 Saturdays in a row, Dave, that Tennessee beats out Georgia?
Listen, I told you this, and people agreed with me on the YouTube message board. We don't know that these 3 aren't the next Cozy Coleman, Jamal Lewis, Deion Grant. We don't know that right now, and I'm standing by that.
I know that. I know that. That's ridiculous, okay? That's absolutely ridiculous.
I thought you were agreeing with me at first. You said, oh, I know that. I was just playing. No. You meant I know that they're not as good as Jamal Lewis, Deion Grant, and Cozy Coleman.
Collectively.
Well, probably not.
Collectively, okay? That is the most like, oh, yeah, Tennessee might just get, the best running back, free safety, and interior offensive lineman in history again. And history of the program again. Like, come on. Okay. So
wait, you're talking about Nico being the best ever. I'm not if I'm speaking in hyperbole, you are.
No, I'm not. Nico was a 5-star that they wrote a $2 million check for. None of these guys are 5-stars.
Okay.
And also, I don't think Nico will be the best quarterback ever. Peyton Manning is the best quarterback ever to play for Tennessee. Nico will have the best production ever because of being in Heupel's system. But okay, putting that aside, yes, Lagonza Hayward would still be a big pickup. Getting a safety out of Georgia, 4-star like that would be huge. Tennessee needs more defensive backs. They need more safeties. Secondary has been their weakest moment. Heupel is actually very excited about the depth of the secondary. Josh Heupel is this year. If he adds a Lagonza Hayward in 2025, that's where your conversation about them possibly being deeper comes into play, or possibly being like more talented. Sorry.
Okay, now it looks like Tennessee might flip a kid, a tight end, 6'6", 235 pounds. Deshaun Brom is now projected Tennessee by Tom Loy, a lead expert with 247 Sports. And he was looking at Oklahoma as well, but for some reason, it appears as if the Oregon commitment is seriously thinking about the Vols. He is from Derby, Kansas. You don't hear a lot of great prospects coming out of Kansas, so I don't know that Tennessee needs to build a pipeline there, but he would be a good pickup. He's the 5th overall tight end in the nation, and he's the 112th overall player, a 4-star athlete. Deshaun Brom would be a big pickup for the Vols. I don't think there's any question about that.
An amazing pickup. My only connection to Kansas for Tennessee, one, Bryce Brown was from Kansas, but the other one, Lance Leipold is the coach at Kansas. Danny White discovered Lance Leipold out of the blue. Maybe they still keep in contact, and maybe that gives Danny White a connection to that state, and maybe Danny White's the one recruiting Deshaun Brom. Who knows? But I will say at 6'6", 235, you put 10 more pounds on him, you could get one of the most generational tight ends possible from a pure athletic standpoint in Tennessee history.
Yep. If he's athletic at that size, that could be scary good. Do you remember a name Dustin Moore? Who remembers that on the message board? That's the most talented player I ever covered that didn't become anything. And I'm not projecting that Sean's going to do that.
I think I heard Fred White talk about him one time. Didn't he?
I mean, when you talk about, it's Antonio Gates is who he was. He was Antonio Gates.
Yeah. He apparently had a big special teams play in '96 again in the opener. Fred White and you were talking about him one time on our show, and I went and looked him up. But like, what happened to him? There were some personal issues, weren't there?
Yeah, there's some personal issues, some bad choices made along the lines. But that's the most talented tight end that I have ever seen. He says his girlfriend is coming to Tennessee. That'd be pretty big, and he did play at Greenville. So here goes that Kansas pipeline to Wichita.
That's true. Wichita State. That's where he started his coaching career.
That's right. Apex Apparel Group Design, Apex Apparel. They do so much more. Call 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Call Tyler for the best in spirit wear or promotional products for your company, not just shirts. They will absolutely give you the best whatever you need, mugs, flags, it's all there. Do me a favor, call. Look, they did this shirt for me, the Off the Hook Sports shirt. It looks great. Call Tyler, 865-919-3001. Mention Off the Hook Sports and get 15% off your first order. That's a pretty good deal. There you go. We will see you Wednesday at 10 a.m. That's our Jimmy Himes Day. We love visiting with Jimmy. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.